FBI agents showed up unannounced at Keanu Reeves' doorstep, his heart pounding with fear and uncertainty. Was this the end of his quiet life, or something far more unexpected? What they asked next didn't just stun him. It shattered everything he thought he knew about the impact of his own kindness. Stay with us to discover the incredible truth. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. Keanu Reeves woke before the sun, as he often did, in the quiet stillness of early morning. His home, nestled on a peaceful street in Los Angeles, was modest compared to the sprawling estates of many celebrities. But for Keanu, it was perfect. A sanctuary where the outside world's demands softened into a gentle hum. The city's usual rush had not yet begun. Instead, there was a soft glow spilling through the curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. The first thing Keanu did was to pour himself a cup of black coffee. The ritual grounded him, connecting him to a world beyond the frantic pace of Hollywood. He preferred it simple, no sugar, no cream, just the pure, bitter taste of the brew. It was a quiet moment of calm before the day's inevitable activity. Sitting near the window, he held the warm mug in his hands and allowed his gaze to drift over the garden outside. Keanu's love for nature was no secret to those who knew him. He found peace in the smallest details, the way the leaves fluttered in the breeze, the smell of damp earth after a light rain, the delicate unfurling of flower petals. It was a reminder that life was cyclical, patient, and enduring, a stark contrast to the fleeting nature of fame. He reached for a weathered book of poetry resting on the small table beside him. The pages were worn, creased with years of gentle use. Poetry had always spoken to him, offering an escape and a way to explore emotions too complex for ordinary conversation. Today, he read a few lines from Rumi and Mary Oliver, letting their words wash over him like a soft melody. Outside, his dog, a quiet, steady companion with gentle eyes, waited by the door. The dog's presence was a constant comfort. For Keanu, the bond was more than companionship. It was a quiet understanding between two souls who found solace in each other's company. Without a word, he stood, opened the door, and greeted his friend with a smile that softened the lines on his face. Together, they stepped into the cool morning air. The world was waking slowly. The chirp of birds, the faint scent of jasmine drifting from a neighbor's garden, the distant hum of traffic yet to fully stir. Walking the familiar streets was more than exercise. It was a meditative journey. The rhythmic steps, the quiet breathing, the steady presence of his dog at his side created a bubble of calm. Neighbors passing by nodded warmly. Many knew Keanu by sight, but few intruded upon his peace. That was the way he liked it. To him, the trappings of fame were hollow without the quiet moments that truly nourished the soul. In this neighborhood, far from the glare of cameras and flashing lights, he was simply a man who valued kindness, solitude, and the small joys of life. The walk wound through shaded streets lined with towering oaks and blossoming magnolias. Keanu listened to the sounds of the city mingled with nature. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant call of a street vendor starting his day, the occasional laughter of children heading to school. These ordinary sounds grounded him, reminding him of the world beyond the red carpets and movie sets. As they moved slowly along the sidewalk, Keanu's thoughts drifted to the plans he had made for the day. He intended to spend time in his garden, tending to the small patch of earth that he cared for with quiet devotion. Gardening had become a form of therapy, an antidote to the relentless pace of his public life. The act of nurturing plants, watching them grow and flourish, gave him a deep sense of satisfaction and connection to something timeless. His garden was humble but vibrant. Tomatoes ripened on the vine, their bright red fruit bursting with promise. Herbs released their fragrant aroma, filling the air with subtle hints of basil and thyme. Flowers in soft pastels nodded gently in the breeze. Each plant was a testament to patience and care. Keanu moved among them with hands that were steady and gentle, tending to the soil, pruning the leaves, whispering words of encouragement. And later, he planned to sit at his writing desk, a simple wooden table bathed in natural light from a large window. Writing had always been a refuge, a way to give voice to the quiet parts of his soul. He often jotted down thoughts, memories, and reflections in a journal he kept close at hand. Words allowed him to explore feelings that were too complex or private for conversation. It was a sacred time when he could be alone with his thoughts. Despite the fame that often followed his every step, Keanu was deeply private. He preferred to keep much of his life hidden from the public eye. The celebrity persona was a role he performed with grace, but the man beneath was humble and reserved. He shied away from the spotlight, choosing instead the company of close friends, family, and moments of solitude. His humility was evident in how he treated others, with kindness, respect, and a gentle presence. He was not a man who sought applause or attention. To those who knew him well, Keanu was a steady force, a rare soul in an industry often marked by glamour and pretense. His grounded nature was his shield and his strength. On this particular morning, that quiet strength was palpable. The world outside was full of noise and chaos, but inside his home, peace reigned. The routine, the coffee, the poetry, the walk, the garden, was a balm for a life lived often in public and under scrutiny. It was these moments that kept him centered. Yet, beneath the calm surface, a subtle tension lingered, an unspoken unease that even Keanu could not fully name. It was a feeling that something was about to shift, a disturbance on the horizon that would soon break into his carefully guarded peace. As the sun rose higher, casting light through the curtains, Keanu returned to his home. The dog settled comfortably by the fireplace, content after their walk. Keanu moved to the kitchen and prepared a second cup of coffee, savoring the quiet energy that filled the room. He sat at the kitchen table and opened a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with fragments of thoughts, lines of poetry, and sketches of ideas. Writing was more than a hobby. It was a way to understand himself, a conversation with the deepest parts of his being. The words that flowed onto the pages were honest and unfiltered, a reflection of the man behind the public image. Keanu thought often about those who lived quietly, making small but meaningful differences in the world. He admired those who acted without fanfare, whose kindness went unnoticed by most but changed lives in profound ways. It was a reminder that true impact did not require grand gestures or public recognition. In these moments, Keanu felt connected to the earth, to people, and to a larger purpose. The world outside might be loud and unforgiving, but here, in the stillness of his home, there was hope and grace. Despite the demands of his career, Keanu fiercely protected this sanctuary. It was where he could breathe freely, reflect deeply, and recharge for the challenges ahead. He knew that the pressures of fame could be overwhelming, but he had learned to carve out spaces of silence and simplicity. This morning, as he sipped his coffee and scribbled in his journal, Keanu embraced the balance he had found. A balance between public life and private peace. It was a delicate dance, but one he moved through with intention and care. Little did he know that this quiet morning would soon be interrupted by visitors who would challenge everything he believed about kindness, impact, and the true power of compassion. Beneath the calm surface, the story was about to change, and Keanu's world would be touched by a revelation that none could have predicted. For now, though, the house remained peaceful, filled with the soft sounds of a man living simply, humbly, and with a heart open to whatever lay ahead. At exactly 8:30 a.m., the familiar calm of Keanu Reeves's home was suddenly broken by the sharp ring of the doorbell. It was unexpected. Too early for visitors, too formal for neighbors. The sound echoed through the quiet house, stirring a flicker of unease in Keanu's chest. He set aside his journal and rose slowly from his chair, moving toward the front door with deliberate calm. He paused briefly before opening it, the cool morning light streaming in from outside. Standing on the doorstep were two figures who instantly caught his attention, not for their faces, but for their presence. They wore dark suits, crisp and professional, the kind of attire reserved for serious business. Each held a badge, gleaming silver in the morning sun, identifying them unmistakably as FBI agents. Keanu's mind raced for a moment, flicking through possibilities. What could this visit mean? The FBI rarely came calling without grave reason. Was this an investigation? A misunderstanding? The flash of anxiety that surged through him was met with a steady breath and a composed expression. Years of public scrutiny had taught him how to manage sudden shocks with grace. The taller agent, a woman with sharp eyes and a firm voice, took the lead. "Mr. Reeves," she said politely but with authority, "I'm Agent Parker, and this is Agent Lawson. We're with the Federal Bureau of Investigation." She offered her badge more formally, as if to reassure that this was official and important. Keanu nodded, maintaining eye contact. "How can I help you?" he asked, voice calm but curious. Agent Parker's tone softened slightly. "We apologize for the early visit, but we need to speak with you about a matter that requires your attention." She paused, searching his face for any sign of reaction. "May we come inside?" The question hung in the air, a polite invitation layered with gravity. Keanu's mind buzzed with questions, but he sensed no immediate threat in their demeanor. He stepped aside, opening the door wider. "Please, come in." The agents entered with practiced professionalism, their eyes scanning briefly as they moved through the entryway into the living room. Keanu closed the door behind them, his dog watching silently from a corner, sensing the change in atmosphere. Agent Lawson, a man with a calm but serious expression, glanced around before settling his gaze back on Keanu. "Thank you for your cooperation," he said. "We understand this might come as a surprise." Keanu nodded again, keeping his voice steady. "I won't lie, it is a bit unexpected. Is this about a criminal investigation?" Agent Parker exchanged a quick look with her partner, then responded carefully. "No, Mr. Reeves, you are not under investigation. We want to be clear about that up front." Relief mixed with confusion washed over Keanu's face. "Then why are you here?" he asked, curiosity overtaking initial worry. The agents took seats in the living room, their posture respectful but attentive. Agent Parker opened a slim folder from her briefcase and pulled out a few documents. "We've been looking into some patterns related to your charitable contributions," she began. "Specifically, donations made anonymously through various organizations." Keanu's brow furrowed slightly. His giving was always private, kept intentionally away from the public eye. He had never sought recognition for it. "My donations? What about them?" Agent Lawson leaned forward slightly. "We believe your donations have had an impact far beyond what anyone anticipated. They appear to be preventing criminal activities before they happen." Keanu blinked, taken aback. The idea was unfamiliar. His philanthropy as a form of crime prevention was not something he had considered. "I don't quite understand," he said slowly. "How could that be?" Agent Parker smiled faintly, acknowledging the complexity of what they were about to explain. "That's why we're here. We'd like to share some findings and understand more about how your contributions are being directed." Keanu felt a strange mix of emotions, curiosity, pride, and an underlying tension that came with the unknown. He gestured toward a chair. "Please, tell me everything." The agents settled into the quiet living room, their expressions calm but focused. Agent Lawson opened his notebook and began to explain in detail what had brought them to Keanu's doorstep on this peaceful morning. "For months," he said slowly, "our team has been tracking a pattern in several cases involving desperate individuals, people pushed to the brink by financial hardship, illness, or family crises. In many instances, these individuals were on the verge of committing crimes. Robberies, burglaries, even acts of violence born from sheer desperation. Keanu listened intently, the weight of those words sinking in. He could imagine the fear and hopelessness that must grip someone facing such impossible choices. His heart tightened at the thought. It was, "Right thought," and Agent Parker continued. What caught our attention was a series of unexpected interventions, timely assistance delivered just before these crimes might have taken place, rent payments made to prevent eviction, utility bills covered to avoid shutoffs, emergency medical care funded to stabilize health crises. She paused, then met Keanu's eyes. In every one of these cases, the support came from organizations you have been quietly donating to, often anonymously. Your generosity has been preventing these crimes without you even realizing it. Keanu's breath caught. The simple act of giving, something he had done out of compassion and a desire to help others, quietly was now revealed as a lifeline. Not just for those he aided, but for entire communities. "I never imagined it could be like this," Keanu said softly, voice tinged with awe. "To think my donations might have saved people from making choices they never wanted to make." Agent Lawson nodded. "Your philanthropy has created a ripple effect. It's addressing the root causes of crime, the desperation and despair, before tragedy can unfold." The room grew heavy with meaning. Keanu thought about the countless faces he had never seen, the stories behind each name on the donation reports. Now, those stories carried new weight. Agent Parker reached into her folder and pulled out a few case files. She handed one to Keanu. "Here is a recent example. A single father facing eviction, his job lost and his children at risk. He planned to rob a convenience store out of desperation, but the night before, his rent was paid anonymously, and he was able to keep his family together." Keanu's eyes scanned the pages, filled with notes, timelines, and interviews. The story was heartbreaking and hopeful all at once. The man had found a second chance because someone cared enough to help without conditions or recognition. Another file told of a veteran struggling with PTSD, isolated and hopeless, who was on the edge of committing a crime to pay for his medications. An anonymous donation had covered 6 months of treatment and therapy, pulling him back from the brink. Agent Lawson's voice lowered with respect. "In over 20 years of federal work, we have never seen charitable giving create this kind of preventative impact. It's extraordinary." Keanu sat back, absorbing the enormity of what he was hearing. His life, often public and scrutinized, had this hidden thread, a quiet kindness weaving through lives and changing outcomes in ways he never imagined. He thought about how much he had sought to avoid the spotlight, to keep his giving anonymous and humble. Now, that anonymity had become a shield and a source of profound change. Agent Parker's tone softened. "We're here because we want to understand your approach, how you choose where to give, how you maintain privacy, and how this model could be expanded to help more people." Keanu nodded slowly. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a calling. This was no longer just about charity, it was about transformation. The room was silent except for the soft ticking of a clock on the wall. Outside, the peaceful morning continued, unaware of the conversation unfolding within. Keanu finally spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've always believed that kindness, even when unseen, has power. But hearing this, it changes everything. It shows how much impact one person's quiet actions can have." The agents exchanged looks, sensing the sincerity and depth behind his words. For Keanu, this moment was a turning point, a revelation that his private compassion was part of something much larger. As the conversation continued, Keanu felt a mixture of humility and resolve. The unexpected visit had brought not fear, but a renewed sense of purpose. The story of his giving was no longer just a personal secret, It was a beacon of hope. Agent Parker shifted slightly in her chair, folding her hands calmly as she met Keanu's steady gaze. "Mr. Reeves, I want to begin by assuring you that you are not the subject of any criminal investigation," she said clearly, her voice firm yet compassionate. "We understand the surprise and concern that might come with a visit from federal agents, but that is not why we are here." Keanu's expression softened a little, though the tension in the room did not fully lift. The weight of the moment pressed upon him. Years of living in the public eye had taught him to handle uncertainty with composure. But the presence of these agents still felt heavy. "We're here to discuss something unusual," Agent Parker continued. "Something related to your private, charitable activities." She paused, allowing the words to settle between them. Keanu leaned forward, intrigued. His philanthropy was a deeply personal part of his life, carefully kept away from public view. He believed that giving without fanfare was a true form of kindness, untouched by ego or expectation. "Charitable activities?" he repeated softly. "I'm not sure I understand." Agent Lawson, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "We've been tracking a pattern that involves your anonymous donations to several charitable organizations, particularly those focused on homelessness, mental health, and veteran support." His tone was respectful, as if speaking about something sacred. Keanu nodded slowly, recalling the many quiet contributions he had made over the years. He never sought recognition or publicity. His hope had always been to help people in need without adding to their burden by drawing attention to their struggles. Agent Parker's voice softened. "What we've discovered is remarkable. Your donations have had an unexpected impact, one that goes beyond financial assistance. They have been linked to the prevention of numerous criminal acts." Keanu's eyes widened slightly. The idea was unfamiliar, almost unbelievable. Preventing crimes? How? The agents exchanged a glance before Agent Parker elaborated. "In many cases, individuals facing desperate situations, those at the edge of committing crimes out of necessity, received timely assistance, funded by your donations. This support helped them avoid actions that could have destroyed their lives and harmed others." Keanu's heart stirred at the thought. The quiet kindness he had practiced was now connected to something far greater. A deep sense of humility washed over him. "We want to understand how you choose to direct your giving," Agent Parker explained, "so that we can study and possibly replicate this approach to help others." Keanu sat back, absorbing the unexpected gravity of their visit. The room seemed smaller now, charged with a new kind of energy. The agent's words revealed a secret life of his philanthropy, one he had never fully imagined. He thought about the countless faces behind the organizations he supported, people whose names he never knew, whose struggles he only glimpsed through reports and occasional visits. Now, those distant stories felt immediate and urgent. "How did you find out about these donations if they were anonymous?" Keanu asked, curiosity mingling with caution. Agent Lawson responded, carefully. "Through financial tracking and collaboration with the organizations you support. We don't seek to compromise your privacy, but to understand the broader effects of your giving." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. Privacy had always been paramount to him, not just for himself, but for the dignity of those receiving help. His giving was meant to empower, not expose. The agents continued to explain how their investigation had uncovered a pattern where anonymous donations coincided with a sharp drop in planned criminal activities within certain communities. They showed data indicating how small interventions, help with rent, utilities, or medical bills, had halted cycles of desperation that often led to crime. Keanu found himself marveling at the interconnectedness of these quiet acts. The money he gave, intended simply to relieve suffering, had become a shield, protecting families, preserving futures. Agent Parker looked at him with a mixture of respect and wonder. "Mr. Reeves, your approach is unlike anything we've seen. It offers a new model for addressing crime by healing root causes rather than punishing outcomes." Keanu considered this deeply. The world was often quick to judge, to criminalize desperation. But compassion, he believed, was the true path to change. "I've always felt that kindness, given without expectation, could make a difference," Keanu said quietly. "But to hear that it prevents harm in this way, it's both humbling and inspiring." The agents nodded. They wanted to learn from him how he identified which causes to support, how he maintained anonymity, and how to build on these successes. Keanu realized the visit was no longer just an inquiry. It was a call to partnership, a chance to amplify something he had nurtured quietly for years. The conversation deepened as Agent Parker and Agent Lawson shared stories they had collected, testimonies from social workers, case files, and personal accounts of lives changed. They spoke of parents saved from eviction, veterans receiving life-saving medications, young adults finding hope through counseling funded by anonymous donors. Each story carried weight, painting a vivid picture of lives spared from tragedy through interventions made possible by Keanu's generosity. Keanu listened intently, feeling the full impact of what he had set in motion. The room felt heavy with possibility, the realization that one person's quiet compassion could ripple out to transform entire communities. "Mr. Reeves," Agent Lawson said, "we're here because we believe your approach can be a blueprint for the future. Your giving is more than charity, it's a powerful tool for social stability and safety." Keanu felt a profound responsibility settle over him. The secrecy he once cherished was now a bridge to something much bigger, a movement that could save lives and prevent suffering on a scale he hadn't dreamed possible. Yet he also knew the importance of protecting the privacy of those involved. The dignity of the people helped was sacred. Publicity could do more harm than good. Agent Parker acknowledged this. "We respect your wishes for discretion. Our goal is to learn, not to expose, to find ways to support and expand what you have begun." Keanu sat quietly for a moment, the weight of their words sinking in. He thought about the power of invisible kindness, the strength found in giving without seeking credit. "I want to help," Keanu said finally, "to see this grow, but it must remain true to its roots, anonymous, compassionate, and focused on those who need it most." The agent smiled, sensing the sincerity and conviction behind his words. As the conversation drew to a close, Keanu realized this unexpected visit was not an intrusion but an invitation, a rare chance to turn quiet acts of kindness into a legacy that could change the world. Long before the unexpected morning when FBI agents knocked on his door, Keanu Reeves had quietly been building a life devoted to private philanthropy. Despite his status as one of the world's most famous actors, with wealth and influence that many could only imagine, Keanu deliberately chose to keep his giving away from the spotlight. It wasn't about fame or accolades for him. True generosity, he believed, was best when it went unseen and unheralded. His journey into philanthropy was gradual. It began with small, thoughtful donations to causes that touched his heart, often causes that others overlooked or avoided. Homeless shelters were near the top of that list. Keanu had witnessed the harsh realities faced by those without a home, the cold nights, the endless search for safety and dignity. These were not abstract statistics to him, they were human lives, fragile and precious. He wanted to help provide not just shelter, but hope. Mental health support was another focus. Keanu had long understood that suffering could be invisible, buried deep beneath the surface. He had seen too many people suffer in silence. Friends, acquaintances, strangers lost in battles with depression, anxiety, and trauma. His donations funded counseling services, community outreach programs, and crisis intervention initiatives designed to reach people in their darkest moments and remind them they were not alone. Veterans held a special place in Keanu's philanthropic heart. Through various encounters and personal relationships, he had come to appreciate the sacrifices they made and the struggles many faced after service. His contributions helped provide medical care, housing assistance, and support groups aimed at healing wounds that often went unseen. He wanted to honor their bravery by helping ease their burdens in any way he could. What set Keanu apart was not only the causes he supported, but the manner in which he gave. His donations were mostly anonymous, deliberately so. He wanted the focus to be on the people helped, not on himself. He avoided public recognition or fanfare. For him, philanthropy was a sacred act of kindness, a responsibility to help without expectation. One day remains etched deeply in Keanu's memory, a quiet afternoon when he chose to visit a local homeless shelter, not for publicity or media coverage, but out of genuine compassion. The shelter was tucked away in an unassuming part of Los Angeles, its walls weathered but filled with hope. Keanu arrived without announcement, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, blending into the background. Inside, the atmosphere was a mix of somber reality and cautious optimism. Keanu moved slowly, taking in the faces of those who had come seeking refuge. There was a mother holding her young child tightly, her eyes full of both exhaustion and fierce determination. An older veteran sat silently in the corner, the weight of his past evident in the lines etched on his face. Young people hovered by the entrance, clutching backpacks and dreams, uncertain but yearning for a fresh start. Keanu spoke quietly with staff and residents alike, offering a smile, a listening ear, and moments of genuine connection. He asked questions with sincere interest, not as a celebrity but as a fellow human being. His voice was gentle and respectful, never intrusive, as he heard stories of hardship, loss, and resilience. One conversation stood out. A veteran sharing his struggles with PTSD, the invisible scars that haunted his nights and clouded his days. Keanu listened without interruption, absorbing the pain and the hope interwoven in the man's words. There was no grand gesture, no promises, just presence and empathy. The veteran reached out, shaking Keanu's hand, grateful for being seen and heard. Keanu's presence lifted spirits in ways words could not capture. Staff later remarked that his visit sparked renewed hope among the residents, reminding them that they were not alone or forgotten. This day illustrated Keanu's belief that philanthropy was more than financial aid. It was about human connection. Helping others meant showing up, listening, and affirming dignity. Yet, despite the depth of these visits, Keanu kept them hidden from public view. He understood the importance of protecting the privacy and dignity of those he helped. His humility demanded that their stories remain theirs alone, free from media exploitation or public spectacle. The agents continued their explanation, unfolding the layers of what had brought them to Keanu's doorstep. They spoke of stories collected from social workers, case managers, and community outreach programs. Lives that had been quietly saved, often without anyone realizing the true source of their rescue. Each story was a thread in a vast tapestry woven through the fabric of neighborhoods and families, linked by one common factor: Keanu's anonymous generosity. Agent Parker carefully laid out a series of case files, each telling a tale of desperation met with unexpected hope. There was the young mother teetering on the edge of homelessness, facing eviction with 2 small children to care for. Her days had been a blur of fear and uncertainty until a timely payment on her rent, funded by one of Keanu's donations, kept her family from being torn apart. She had since found stability, enrolling her children in school and beginning to rebuild her life. Another file detailed the story of a veteran alone and battling the invisible wounds of PTSD. Isolated and struggling to afford medication, he had contemplated desperate actions that might have shattered his life and others. Yet, just as he was about to cross that line, funds arrived to cover his prescriptions and counseling sessions. That intervention became a lifeline, a moment that transformed despair into healing. Agent Lawson's voice was steady but carried a note of reverence as he shared these accounts. In over 2 decades of federal service, we have never encountered philanthropy with this kind of direct and measurable impact on crime prevention. Your approach, quiet, consistent, and deeply compassionate, offers a new paradigm." Keanu sat back, absorbing the gravity of their words. He thought about the countless unseen faces behind those stories, the men, women, and children whose lives had been spared tragedy. The realization settled on him that his private acts of kindness had grown into something far greater than he had ever imagined. The agents then shifted the conversation toward the future. They explained that their purpose was not merely to inform, but to learn. They sought to understand how Keanu identified causes, chose where to give, and maintained the delicate balance of anonymity and effectiveness. Their hope was to study and potentially replicate his model, applying it on a broader scale to address social issues at their root. Keanu reflected quietly. The idea that his quiet giving could serve as a blueprint for change was both humbling and daunting. He valued the privacy that had protected his efforts and those he helped, but he recognized the potential to amplify this compassion and bring it to communities far beyond his reach. Agent Parker's expression softened. "We are committed to respecting your wishes regarding confidentiality. Our goal is to collaborate, not to expose, to empower, not to disrupt." Keanu nodded slowly, understanding the delicate line they walked. Publicity could damage the dignity of those who received help. It could also undermine the trust he had carefully built with organizations and individuals alike. As their conversation drew to a close, Keanu felt a profound sense of responsibility awaken within him. This visit was not an intrusion, it was an invitation, an unexpected call to elevate a mission he had nurtured quietly for years. He had long believed that kindness, even in its most discreet form, could change lives. Now, he saw that belief reflected back at him with new clarity and purpose. He looked at the agents and said, "I want to help, not for recognition, but to see this work grow and reach more people. But it must remain true to its essence, private, compassionate, and focused on the dignity of those we serve." The agents smiled, sensing the depth of his commitment. They knew this was the beginning of a partnership, one that held the promise of transforming communities through the power of unseen kindness. Outside, the peaceful morning carried on as if nothing had changed. But inside, a quiet revolution was unfolding, one born from the simple but profound acts of a man who believed that every life mattered. Keanu's days were carefully balanced between moments of quiet solitude and meaningful connection. Each morning, he found peace in the simple rituals that centered him: a walk through the nearby park with his dog, the cool breeze brushing past him, the soft rustle of leaves whispering in the trees. These moments of nature gave him a grounding that no amount of fame or fortune could replace. In these walks, away from cameras and fans, Keanu felt most himself: the gentle rhythm of footsteps on the path, the distant laughter of children playing, and the occasional call of a bird created a soundtrack that soothed his mind. These hours were his sanctuary, a buffer from the noise of a world that often demanded too much. Afternoons were reserved for friendships, those rare, trusted people with whom he could be entirely genuine. Coffee shops and quiet restaurants became places of laughter, conversation, and mutual respect. These friendships were a lifeline, reminding Keanu that beneath the public persona was a man seeking connection and understanding. It was during one such afternoon, as he prepared to step out for a meeting with a longtime friend, that the call came. His phone rang sharply, the sound breaking the calm. On the other end was Sarah, his personal security advisor. Her voice was calm, but carried a subtle urgency that immediately drew his attention. "Keanu, we've detected some unusual surveillance activity around your home and some other places associated with you," she said carefully. "It's professional, discreet, but definitely organized." Keanu felt a chill despite the warm sun filtering through his window. "Surveillance?" he repeated slowly. "What exactly have you seen?" "We're observing individuals who appear to be conducting surveillance with sophisticated equipment," Sarah explained. "They're not casual observers. This looks like a coordinated effort." Keanu's mind raced briefly, running through all the possibilities. He was no stranger to public attention, but this felt different, more focused, more intrusive. Yet he remained composed. "Have you identified who they might be or what their intentions are?" Sarah's tone was measured. "Not yet, but we are working closely with local and federal authorities. Our priority is your safety and privacy." Keanu nodded quietly. Protecting his personal life had always been crucial, not only for himself, but for those closest to him. The idea that his sanctuary was being watched unsettled him deeply. The news of surveillance unsettled Keanu more than he cared to admit, but he was determined not to allow anxiety to take hold of his life. Privacy had always been sacred to him. It was more than just a boundary. It was a fortress protecting the people he cared about and the simple life he fought to preserve. Now, that fortress felt compromised. As the days passed, subtle signs began to emerge. Unfamiliar cars parked on nearby streets lingered too long. People who seemed out of place walked past his home, glancing back as if to confirm they were being observed. There were moments when Keanu felt the weight of unseen eyes tracking his every movement, turning his sanctuary into a stage. Despite the creeping tension, Keanu held firm. He did not want the unknown to dictate how he lived. His walks through the park remained a vital part of his routine, time to breathe, to reconnect with the world beyond scrutiny. The park's towering trees, the soft crunch of leaves underfoot, and the gentle chorus of birdsong were reminders that life moved on, that beauty persisted. His dog stayed close, a constant source of comfort and companionship. Keanu found peace in the simple act of companionship, the shared moments without words, just trust and presence. Friends noticed a quiet shift in Keanu's demeanor. The warmth in his eyes was still there, but an edge of vigilance shadowed his smiles. During a small gathering at a friend's home, one person approached him softly, concern in her voice. "You seem different lately. Is something troubling you?" Keanu paused before answering, his voice calm but resolute. "There's some unusual activity near my home, but I won't let it change who I am or how I live." His words carried the weight of quiet determination. The intrusion forced Keanu to tighten the circle of trust around him. He became selective in what he shared, confiding only in those who had proven their loyalty over years. His inner circle became a shield, protecting not only his privacy, but the peace of those closest to him. Meanwhile, Sarah, his security advisor, remained a vigilant presence. She provided constant updates, blending reassurance with realism. Security measures increased, discreet patrols, surveillance cameras, and emergency protocols. The professionals guarding his safety moved silently, but their vigilance was palpable. Yet, even as the threat hovered nearby, Keanu refused to let fear overshadow his life. He continued writing in his journal, working quietly on causes dear to him, and sharing moments of laughter and reflection with friends. The challenge was to hold balance, to keep living fully without surrendering to paranoia. The days unfolded with an uneasy rhythm. The shadow of surveillance hung quietly in the background, threading through Keanu's life like an unseen tension. But beneath it all, his spirit remained unbroken. He sought refuge in the familiar. The scratch of pen on paper as he wrote late into the night, the soft warmth of tea sipped in solitude, the steady breathing of his dog resting close. These simple comforts grounded him, a balm for the nerves unsettled by the unknown. In moments of stillness, Keanu turned to meditation and mindfulness, practices that helped him find calm amid chaos. He centered himself on breath and presence, holding space for peace, even when the world outside felt uncertain. His instinct to protect those he loved grew stronger. He kept his personal life closely guarded, sharing details with only a trusted few. The circle of friends and advisors around him shrank but deepened. a fortress of loyalty and discretion. Though the sense of being watched never fully faded, Keanu refused to let it define his days. He quietly continued his philanthropic work, funding organizations that reached the vulnerable and forgotten. His mission, to help, to heal, to uplift, remained a guiding light through the darkening uncertainty. At night, as he lay in the quiet of his room, thoughts often turned to the fragile nature of security and peace. He understood that neither could be taken for granted. They had to be earned, nurtured, and fiercely protected. Yet Keanu also knew that true peace came not from walls or vigilance alone, but from living authentically and with compassion. He vowed to meet this challenge with grace, to balance protection with openness. This was a man who, in the face of looming shadows, chose to shine steadily, to embody kindness, strength, and unwavering hope. After the initial report of surveillance, Keanu Reeves found himself living under a growing, unseen weight. The subtle feeling of being watched soon escalated into a coordinated, well-organized effort. What started as isolated observations turned into a complex operation involving multiple teams. These individuals moved silently and efficiently around his home and key locations linked to his personal and philanthropic life. On quiet residential streets near his home, unmarked vehicles parked inconspicuously, sometimes for hours. The occupants, dressed like everyday people, carried advanced cameras, binoculars, and other equipment that betrayed their true purpose. Drones quietly skimmed the skies, their lenses capturing every movement below. This was no casual observation. It was a highly professional surveillance operation, with a clear goal. Sarah, Keanu's trusted personal security advisor, was a steady voice amid the uncertainty. Her updates were frequent, thorough, and calm. One late evening call stood out. "Keanu, this is no longer just local interest. Multiple teams are operating together, using encrypted communications. The scale and professionalism indicate this is a federal-level operation." Keanu listened carefully, his expression calm but thoughtful. He had endured the glare of fame before, but this felt deeper, more invasive. His personal space, the sanctuary he cherished, was becoming a place where invisible watchers lurked. Those close to him noticed a subtle but unmistakable change. Keanu remained warm and kind, but a faint shadow of concern passed through his eyes from time to time. Only those who truly knew him could see the tension beneath his composed exterior. At a small, intimate gathering one evening, a close friend gently asked, "Keanu, how are you holding up with everything going on?" He smiled softly, his voice steady. "It's not about holding up. It's about choosing to keep going forward. We can't let fear stop us." As days turned into weeks, the surveillance operation surrounding Keanu Reeves grew increasingly sophisticated and pervasive. It was no longer just a handful of individuals quietly watching from a distance. Multiple teams had been deployed, each employing the latest technology to monitor his movements and routines without raising suspicion. Thermal cameras were installed in inconspicuous places, capturing heat signatures even in the dead of night. High-powered zoom lenses were mounted on unmarked vehicles that circulated the neighborhood with the ease of local residents, their drivers trained to blend into any setting. Signal jammers and interceptors attempted to track communications, while discreet drones hovered silently, their tiny rotors barely audible over the city's usual hum. Sarah and her security team worked tirelessly to keep pace with these developments. The challenge was immense. The layers of surveillance were deep and well-coordinated. "We've established communication with several federal agencies," Sarah explained during a briefing. "This is a multi-agency effort with serious resources behind it. They are monitoring not just your residents but your offices and the non-profit organizations you support." Despite the mounting pressure, Keanu maintained his composure. His daily routines became a refuge. Morning walks through the city's parks remained sacrosanct, times to reconnect with the natural world and to find peace in the simplicity of birdsong, the rustling of leaves, and the soft touch of sunlight through the branches. These moments grounded him, reminding him of the life beyond scrutiny and shadow. Those close to him noticed subtle changes. Keanu's laughter was genuine but sometimes tinged with a hint of distraction. His eyes, usually so full of warmth, sometimes flickered with concern. During a quiet lunch, a dear friend confided, "You're handling this with incredible grace. It's inspiring to see how you stay so steady when so much is happening around you." Keanu smiled, humility shining through. "It's not about strength," he replied softly. "It's about the choice to keep moving forward, no matter the challenges. Fear has no place when life demands courage." The encroaching surveillance made Keanu more cautious in his interactions. Conversations were carefully measured, and his inner circle narrowed to those he trusted implicitly. This protective circle became a sanctuary amid growing uncertainty, a web of loyalty and discretion safeguarding his privacy. Yet even as the watchful eyes grew closer, Keanu's commitment to his philanthropic mission remained unwavering. Donations continued flowing quietly to shelters, mental health programs, and veteran support groups. His efforts to bring aid and hope to the most vulnerable did not waver. This work was a beacon of light amidst the tightening shadows. The relentless surveillance became an almost constant presence in Keanu's life, a silent companion tracing his every step. The watchers observed with patience and precision, mapping routines, analyzing behaviors, and anticipating actions. Yet through it all, Keanu moved with a quiet dignity, refusing to let the pressure fracture his spirit. Sarah's team adapted swiftly to the evolving threat landscape. New countermeasures were put in place: encrypted communications, enhanced physical security, and close coordination with trusted law enforcement allies. The goal was to protect Keanu's privacy and safety without escalating the tension. What became increasingly clear was that the interest in Keanu extended beyond the typical scrutiny faced by celebrities. The source of attention was tied to the profound, though hidden, impact of his charitable work, the quiet power of kindness that was transforming lives in unseen ways. Within this atmosphere of tension, Keanu found refuge in simple pleasures. His garden flourished under his attentive care. The earth's scent, the vibrant colors of blooming flowers, and the gentle nurturing of new growth offered solace for his weary mind. Evenings were spent with pen in hand, journaling thoughts and emotions that words seldom allowed in conversation. Visits from close friends provided warmth and laughter, precious reminders of connection beyond the watchful eyes. These relationships grounded him, rekindled hope, and fortified resolve. Keanu's response to the growing shadow was deliberate and courageous. The surveillance was a test, an intrusion upon his private world. Yet he met it with the same gentle humility and steadfast strength that had always defined him. His inner light refused to flicker or fade. Though the future remained uncertain, Keanu Reeves stood firm, an enduring beacon of calm, compassion, and resilience in a world filled with silent watchers and whispered questions. The news from Sarah came one gray afternoon while Keanu was in the quiet solitude of his study. Her voice was calm but serious, carrying the weight of unfolding events. "Keanu, the FBI has expanded their inquiries," she began. "They've started interviewing people connected to your charities and business. This is more than just passive observation." Keanu closed his notebook slowly and sat back in his chair, his mind already running through what this meant. "Who exactly are they talking to?" he asked, steady despite the unsettling news. "They've interviewed several directors and financial officers from the nonprofits you support. They're asking about your donations, how the funds were allocated, and your involvement. On the business side, they're scrutinizing contracts, financial records, and communications across your companies," Sarah explained. Keanu nodded, the gravity sinking in. Federal investigations this broad and detailed were serious and could drag on for months or even years. Yet he reminded himself to stay calm and focused. His actions were transparent and legal, his donations always routed through reputable organizations. Still, the pressure was real. Sarah continued. They're compiling financial records, looking for patterns, anything unusual. You're not accused of wrongdoing, but the investigation's scope is wide. Keanu exhaled quietly. It was hard not to feel unease in the face of such scrutiny, but he resolved not to let anxiety consume him. His purpose, to help quietly and effectively, remained unchanged. That evening, alone in his study, he reflected deeply on the tension between privacy and transparency. How could he protect the confidentiality of those helped while cooperating fully with federal demands? It was a complex balance. But amidst all uncertainty, Keanu's determination to stay true to his values remained a steady beacon in the growing storm. Days after Sarah's unsettling update, Keanu found himself in the calm yet serious environment of his trusted lawyer's office. The room was lined with bookshelves, filled with legal tomes and case files, a place where decisions with long-lasting impact were made away from the public eye. Keanu's lawyer was a composed figure, known for his experience handling high-profile federal investigations. His reputation for thoroughness and discretion was exactly what Keanu needed. Now, as Keanu explained the latest developments, the lawyer listened carefully, nodding occasionally to show understanding. When Keanu finished, the lawyer leaned forward, fingers steepled. Keanu, federal investigations at this level are exhaustive. They're designed to examine every aspect of your affairs, financial, charitable, business, to build a comprehensive picture. This level of scrutiny is intense and can last months or even years. It's not unusual for innocent people to be subjected to these prolonged inquiries. Keanu absorbed this quietly, appreciating the lawyer's frankness. I want to cooperate fully. There is nothing to hide, but I am deeply concerned about protecting the privacy of the people and organizations we support. Their dignity matters as much as the truth. That's a delicate balance, the lawyer agreed. You must be transparent with investigators, providing complete and accurate information, but you also have the right to protect confidential information, especially regarding beneficiaries and sensitive charitable activities. This will require careful legal navigation. They discussed at length how to prepare for the investigation. Organizing every donation, contract, and transaction meticulously was crucial. Clear documentation and honest responses would be the foundation of Keanu's defense. The lawyer also warned about the emotional toll. These investigations aren't just legal processes, they wear on a person's spirit. You may face invasive questioning, intense media scrutiny, and pressure from all sides. Preparing mentally and emotionally is as important as preparing documents. Keanu nodded solemnly. The potential for reputational damage weighed on him. The media could misconstrue facts, and public opinion could shift before the truth was fully known. Yet beneath all that concern was a stronger certainty. His philanthropic efforts had always been guided by compassion, humility, and a desire to help without fanfare. That core truth could not be compromised by external pressures. Before leaving, the lawyer summarized their plan. Stay patient, cooperate fully, protect privacy where you can. Above all, remain steadfast in your integrity. This will test you, but it is survivable. Keanu left the office feeling a renewed sense of determination. No matter how difficult the road ahead, he would walk it with honesty and grace. That evening, Keanu sat alone in his study, the soft glow of the desk lamp casting warm pools of light across the pages of his journal. The room was quiet except for the gentle scratch of his pen moving rhythmically over the paper. It was a rare moment of solitude, a chance to gather his thoughts in a world that suddenly felt unstable. The FBI's inquiries had expanded far beyond his initial expectations. Trusted colleagues at the charities he supported had been interviewed. Financial documents that once seemed routine were now dissected with meticulous scrutiny. The weight of the investigation pressed on him like an invisible fog, thick and unrelenting. As he wrote, Keanu allowed himself to confront the fears that had lingered beneath his calm exterior. The prospect of legal battles, the possibility of reputational damage, and the emotional strain on his friends and family all loomed large in his mind. But beyond those fears, a stronger truth remained unshaken. His philanthropy was not about recognition or personal gain. It was about compassion and service, about offering hope where it was needed most. No amount of scrutiny could diminish the quiet kindness that had driven his giving for years. He paused, reflecting on the delicate balance he had to maintain, being transparent enough to satisfy investigators while protecting the privacy and dignity of those he helped. Many of them were vulnerable, and exposure could do more harm than good. The words he wrote were reminders to himself: patience, honesty, protect their dignity. Let fear be a visitor, not a master. Closing the journal, Keanu looked out the window at the sprawling city below, its lights shimmering like distant stars. The future was uncertain, full of unknowns and challenges that could test him in ways he had never imagined. But he was ready, not because he knew what lay ahead, but because he had chosen to stand firm in his values. Compassion, humility, and integrity would be his guides through whatever came. Keanu Reeves was more than the sum of the scrutiny and suspicion surrounding him. He was a man devoted to kindness, a steady light in a world shadowed by doubt, and that light would not be extinguished. Keanu Reeves sat in the quiet stillness of his living room, the dim light casting gentle shadows on the walls around him. Outside, the city was alive with the usual hum of life: cars passing, distant chatter, the faint buzz of electricity. But inside, time seemed to slow. He was alone with his thoughts, a space he treasured more than ever as the world pressed closer. The contrast between the simple life he had always cherished and the growing public exposure was sharper now than it had ever been. Privacy, once a given, had become a fragile and precious thing, something he felt slipping away day by day. The news, the headlines, the questions, it was relentless. It weighed on him in a way that was both exhausting and unfamiliar. Despite the growing attention, Keanu's desire to keep his philanthropic work private was unwavering. To him, true giving was not about applause or recognition. It was about creating real, meaningful change, quietly, with no need for fanfare. But as the world began to take notice of his generosity, balancing that need for privacy with the impact he wished to have became an increasingly difficult challenge. One evening, a close friend came to visit. Someone who had known Keanu for many years, someone who understood not just the man the world saw, but the person beneath. They sat together in the warm glow of a lamp, the soft light illuminating the quiet intimacy of their conversation. "It must feel lonely sometimes," his friend said, breaking the silence with gentle honesty. "Carrying so much responsibility, with everyone watching your every move." Keanu nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful and distant. "Fame has a price," he said quietly. "The responsibility feels heavy, especially when you want to make a difference quietly, without the world watching. But the world wants stories, headlines, quick bites they can consume and forget." That conversation was a rare moment of vulnerability for Keanu. It was a glimpse behind the calm, collected exterior, the weight of loneliness that often accompanied his role as both a public figure and a quiet benefactor. Yet even in the depths of that solitude, Keanu's grounded nature shone brightly. His core values, rooted in humility, compassion, and a fierce determination to do what was right, were the compass guiding him through the noise and distraction. He refused to let the glare of public attention distort the true essence of his mission. In the days that followed that private conversation, Keanu pressed forward with his philanthropic work, more determined than ever to make a difference without seeking recognition. Despite the growing scrutiny and public interest, his approach remained deeply personal and quiet. Late at night, when the world outside had grown still, Keanu would pick up the phone and make careful, discreet calls. These were not for publicity or showmanship, but to trusted contacts, leaders of nonprofits, community organizers, and people on the ground working tirelessly in places most overlooked. Each conversation was deliberate, filled with earnest questions and thoughtful listening. He asked about the challenges these organizations faced: families struggling to keep a roof over their heads, veterans fighting unseen battles with trauma, children growing up with little hope for a better future. Keanu absorbed these stories with quiet intensity. He offered what help he could: additional funding, connections to broader networks, and advice on sustainable strategies to increase impact. His philanthropy was not a grand public gesture, but a series of small, carefully measured acts woven together into a fabric of hope. He believed that true generosity was deeply personal, something done for its own sake, not for public approval. Friends and colleagues around him admired this humility. They often spoke of Keanu's ability to remain grounded despite the pressure, of his refusal to let the glare of fame change who he was. His resilience was quiet but unwavering, a powerful testament to his character. During moments of reflection, Keanu would return to the simplicity that had always kept him centered. A walk in the park, the comforting presence of his dog at his side, the steady rhythm of writing in his journal. These were reminders of what mattered beyond headlines and investigations. He understood fully the delicate balance he was trying to maintain between protecting his privacy and maximizing his impact, between managing public perception and staying true to his values. It was a challenging dance, one he met every day with grace and determination. One evening, after a long day of calls, meetings, and quiet work, Keanu stepped out onto the porch of his home. The sky was ablaze with the warm colors of sunset. Fiery oranges, soft pinks, and deep purples blending into a breathtaking canvas. The city stretched out before him, lights flickering like distant stars. In this tranquil moment, Keanu allowed himself to breathe deeply and reflect on the path that had led him here. His philanthropic work had grown far beyond simple acts of kindness. It had become a quiet movement, reaching countless lives. Though much of it remained hidden from public view, the ripple effects were profound. He thought of the families his support had helped keep together, the veterans who had found new hope, the children given opportunities they might otherwise never have known. These stories, often left untold by the media, were the true measure of his impact. As the sky darkened and stars began to appear, Keanu's thoughts turned to the challenges ahead. The scrutiny, the questions, and the pressure were all part of the price he paid for choosing this path. Yet, he refused to let these shadows dim his light. He reminded himself that humility was the foundation of everything he did. His giving was not about recognition or personal gain. It was about compassion in its purest form. That light could not be dimmed by public gaze or legal inquiry. Keanu's strength was also sustained by the support of those closest to him, friends who understood his mission and stood beside him without hesitation. Their quiet encouragement was a balm to his spirit, a reminder that he was not alone. Looking out over the city that night, Keanu felt a renewed sense of purpose. The balance between privacy and influence was delicate and sometimes painful, but it was a balance worth fighting for. Keanu Reeves was a man defined not by fame or headlines, but by kindness. In a world hungry for spectacle, he chose subtlety and sincerity. His journey was ongoing, marked by quiet resilience and a steadfast heart. And so, with humility and courage, Keanu stepped forward into an uncertain future, ready to continue making a difference, one small act of compassion at a time. The doorbell rang softly one late afternoon, breaking the quiet calm that had settled over Keanu's home. He looked up from the book he had been reading, a gentle smile spreading across his face as his niece, Lily, stepped inside. She was just 7 years old, curious, bright-eyed, and full of life, carrying a small backpack that seemed almost too big for her slight frame. Keanu knelt to greet her, pulling her into a warm hug. "Hey, Lily, how was school today?" Lily shrugged playfully, but her eyes sparkled. "It was good, Uncle Keanu, but I missed you." Keanu's heart softened. Family was his refuge from the pressures outside, a place where he could be simply himself, without the world's relentless gaze. They settled into the living room together, Lily climbing onto the couch beside him. The evening sun cast golden rays through the window, painting the room in a soft glow. For a while, they talked about school, friends, and her favorite storybooks. Then, without warning, Lily turned to him with the seriousness of a child trying to understand something far beyond her years. "Uncle Keanu, why is everyone suddenly paying so much attention to you?" The question caught him off guard. He felt a sharp pang deep in his chest, the innocence of the inquiry cutting through layers of anxiety and worry that had built up over the past weeks. Keanu paused, searching for the right words. How could he explain the complexities of scrutiny, suspicion, and investigation to a child? How to shield her from the weight of adult concerns without dismissing her genuine curiosity? He took a deep breath and smiled gently, reaching out to take her small hand in his. "Sometimes," he began carefully, "when people try to do good things, other people get curious. Sometimes that curiosity can feel overwhelming." Lily tilted her head, her brows furrowed in thought. "Is it because you're helping people?" "Yes," Keanu said softly. "Helping people is important, but sometimes it also brings attention, good and bad. It's not always easy to handle." Lily considered this quietly. "Do you feel sad when they watch you?" Keanu looked down at her hand and squeezed it gently. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I try to remember why I do what I do. The people who need help, the lives we can make better. That's what matters most." Her eyes brightened with understanding, and she leaned against him. In that moment, the world's noise faded, replaced by the simple truth of family and love. The question Lily had asked lingered in Keanu's mind long after she had gone to bed. Her innocent curiosity had cut through the layers of complexity and anxiety that had built up around him. It was a simple question, but it highlighted the profound emotional cost of living under such intense scrutiny. Keanu understood that the investigation was more than just a business or legal matter. It was personal. The relentless attention had begun to affect those closest to him, his family, his friends, and especially the young ones like Lily, who deserved nothing but peace and happiness. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on Keanu's shoulders. He thought about his parents, about the support they had given him over the years, and about the sacrifices his sister had made. Now, it felt like the very fabric of their lives was being tested. The thought of causing them pain or disruption was unbearable. He also reflected on the loneliness that often accompanied his public life. Fame brought admiration, yes, but also isolation. There were few who truly understood the pressure of balancing public expectation with personal integrity. That night, as he sat by the window looking out at the stars, Keanu felt a quiet resolve growing within him. The universe above was vast and mysterious, filled with endless possibilities. He drew strength from that vastness, reminding himself that the challenges he faced were but moments in a larger journey. Keanu thought deeply about the delicate balance he was trying to maintain, the need to be transparent enough to satisfy federal inquiries while protecting the privacy and dignity of those he loved and helped. It was a balancing act that demanded grace and resilience. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with uncertainty and pressure, but in his heart, he held on to hope. A hope that by staying true to his values and protecting his family, he could weather the storm. The night passed quietly, and with dawn came renewed determination. Keanu was resolved to face whatever came with courage and unwavering integrity. The next morning, Keanu awoke early, feeling the soft warmth of the rising sun filtering through the curtains. After a simple breakfast, he settled at his desk, pen in hand, ready to pour his thoughts into his journal. Writing had always been a refuge, a way to process emotions and clarify his purpose amidst the chaos. He began to write about Lily's question, the innocence behind it, and the stark contrast to the complexity of his life. He wrote about the strain of public scrutiny, the emotional toll of the investigation, and the fears he kept hidden deep inside. But he also wrote about hope, the hope that kindness and humility could prevail even in the darkest times. Throughout the day, Keanu continued to move through his work with steady purpose. He made calls to nonprofit leaders, discussed strategies to increase support for struggling communities, and quietly arranged additional funding for urgent projects. His philanthropy remained his anchor, a reminder of the good that was still possible. Despite the growing public attention, Keanu remained grounded. He focused on the real lives behind the headlines. The families helped, the veterans supported, the children given a chance to dream. These stories fueled his resolve. As evening approached, Keanu found himself back on his porch, gazing at the stars emerging in the twilight sky. The journey ahead was uncertain, but his commitment to kindness and quiet strength remained firm. Lily's innocent question had humanized the turmoil around him. It reminded him that beyond the legal battles and public scrutiny were real people, people he loved and cared for deeply. Keanu Reeves was more than a public figure under investigation. He was a man devoted to love, family, and resilience. And in the face of uncertainty, that devotion would never falter. The air in the room was thick with anticipation as Keanu Reeves sat quietly, his gaze fixed on the two FBI agents seated across from him. For hours they had gone over the details of the investigation, explaining procedures, answering questions, and outlining their scope of inquiry. Yet now, Agent Parker, the lead investigator, leaned forward with an expression that carried a rare mix of seriousness and genuine admiration. "Mr. Reeves," she began, her voice steady and deliberate, "the reason we're here is unlike any case we've encountered before. Your anonymous charitable donations have done something remarkable. They've prevented crimes before they could happen." Keanu blinked, a flicker of disbelief crossing his features. "Prevented crimes? I'm not sure I follow." Agent Davis, her partner, spoke with equal gravity. "We've been tracking a pattern. Individuals in desperate situations, on the verge of committing robberies, burglaries, even violent acts, received unexpected aid, funded by your donations shortly before their plans were set into motion." Keanu's heart quickened. "You mean my donations stopped people from committing crimes?" "Exactly," Agent Parker affirmed. "By easing financial burdens, paying overdue rent, covering utility bills, funding emergency medical care, and providing mental health support, your contributions have interrupted a chain reaction that often leads to criminal behavior." The agents carefully opened a thick folder filled with case files, medical reports, and financial statements. "We want to share with you some specific examples," Agent Davis said. "Real people whose lives were changed because of your generosity, often without them knowing where the help came from." Leaning closer, Keanu's curiosity and disbelief battled within him. He had always given quietly, avoiding attention, never imagining his philanthropy could have such direct, tangible effects on community safety. Agent Davis began recounting the story of Marcus, a veteran whose service to his country had left invisible wounds far deeper than most could see. Marcus had returned home carrying a heavy burden, post-traumatic stress disorder that gnawed relentlessly at his mind, combined with the crushing reality of unemployment and mounting medical bills. 3 weeks ago, Agent Davis explained with measured tone, Marcus was at a critical point. Without the means to afford his essential medications and counseling, his mental health deteriorated rapidly. He found himself considering desperate actions, including a series of burglaries in his own neighborhood as a last resort to provide for his family and secure the care he so desperately needed. Keanu's eyes fixed on the agents as they unfolded the story, the gravity of their words sinking in. But, Agent Davis continued, just days before Marcus was set to act on his plans, an anonymous donor's intervention changed everything. He received notification that his medications for 6 months were fully covered, alongside funding for professional counseling services. The impact was immediate and profound. Marcus was able to regain stability, focus on healing, and reconnect with his loved ones. His path toward recovery and steady employment began anew, a path that might never have existed without that crucial support. Keanu was quiet, absorbing the weight of what that meant. "I never imagined the consequences of my donations could be so direct," he admitted softly. The agents then shifted focus to Lisa's story, a single mother struggling under the immense pressure of financial insecurity. Lisa was 3 months behind on rent, her family teetering on the edge of homelessness. The fear and desperation that built up pushed her toward a dark crossroads. A plan to rob a local convenience store, just to keep a roof over her children's heads. But the night before, Agent Parker said, voice filled with empathy, Lisa received an anonymous utility payment covering her overdue electricity bill and rent. That timely help prevented eviction and saved her family from a crisis that could have had devastating consequences. Keanu's throat tightened as he imagined the relief, the turning point between despair and hope. These stories were not abstract. They were lives saved, futures preserved. The agents shared more cases, each illustrating a thread in the complex tapestry of community rescue. A father stopped from desperation by a rent payment. A woman spared of breakdown by emergency medical funding. A teenager kept from falling into a life of crime thanks to timely food and shelter support. Agent Davis, with a tone mixing awe and respect, concluded, "In all my years, I've never encountered charitable giving functioning as an effective crime prevention strategy with such precision. Your contributions have intercepted dozens of criminal acts and spared countless individuals from destruction." The room felt lighter then, the earlier tension replaced by a profound respect for the power of quiet generosity. Keanu sat back, humbled and deeply moved. His anonymous giving had grown into a force that shaped lives in ways he had never imagined. The agents continued, detailing even more stories that reflected the far-reaching impact of Keanu's generosity. One tale was about a father of 2 young children caught in a cycle of poverty and desperation, who was planning a robbery to prevent eviction and protect his family's home. "Your anonymous donation paid his rent and utilities just in time," Agent Parker explained. "This intervention stopped him from making a decision that could have shattered his family's stability and placed him on a path toward incarceration." Another story focused on a woman battling a chronic illness. Facing overwhelming medical bills and eviction threats, she was on the brink of collapse. Emergency funds made possible through Keanu's support enabled her to cover necessary treatments and remain in her home, giving her a fighting chance at recovery. These real lives, wrapped in crises and saved by timely acts of kindness, illustrated the profound ripple effect of unseen philanthropy. The FBI's investigation revealed a network of quiet hope, woven through communities at their most vulnerable. Agent Davis looked directly at Keanu with genuine admiration. "What you're doing isn't just charity, it's a new model for crime prevention, addressing the root causes of criminal behavior rather than reacting after crimes are committed. Your giving breaks the cycle of desperation." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. "We want to learn from your approach and recommend it to other philanthropists and government agencies. Your method could transform how we prevent crime nationwide." Keanu sat quietly, overwhelmed by the realization of his unseen influence. What had started as small, personal acts of giving had blossomed into a transformative force for good, one that preserved lives and strengthened communities. The atmosphere in the room shifted. The fear and uncertainty that had once filled the space gave way to hope and possibility. Keanu Reeves understood, in that moment, that the path he had chosen, quiet kindness over public acclaim, was making a difference far greater than he had ever anticipated. He felt a renewed strength, ready to continue his journey of compassion, knowing that his generosity was saving lives before they were lost. Keanu sat quietly in his study, the evening light casting soft shadows across the walls. The weight of the FBI agent's revelations hung heavily in the room, settling over him like a profound wave. Their words replayed in his mind, the astonishing fact that his anonymous donations had prevented numerous crimes, had literally altered the paths of lives he had never met. He was stunned. The quiet acts of kindness he had long considered personal, small ripples in the ocean, were in fact tidal waves in the lives of those in desperate need. He reflected deeply on the unintended consequences of his generosity. His donations, given without fanfare or public recognition, had reached beyond what he could have envisioned. A veteran stabilized by medication funds, a single mother saved from eviction, a family kept together by a rent payment. Each story was a testament to the invisible, profound power of compassion. He did not. The realization stirred a swirl of emotions inside him. There was fear, the fear of exposure, of losing the privacy he so deeply valued, of the implications that public knowledge might bring. But alongside that fear was something more powerful, humility. To discover that the small acts he performed quietly, without expectation or glory, could prevent suffering and even crime, humbled him profoundly. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the enormity of the truth settle within. For years he had believed in kindness as a force for good, but to see the tangible evidence, to witness how that kindness saved lives in such direct ways, was transformative. The world was vast, complex, and sometimes unforgiving, yet kindness remained a beacon in the dark. Keanu's thoughts wandered to the countless faces behind those stories, faces of people like Marcus and Lisa, people caught in desperate moments who found a lifeline just in time. His giving was not just charity, it was a shield against despair, a lifeline to hope. In the days after the FBI agents left, Keanu found himself drifting through a haze of emotions, the weight of the revelation settling deep within him. The initial confusion and anxiety that had consumed him began to morph into something more profound, a quiet introspection that led him down unexpected paths of thought. The agent's stories had opened his eyes to the incredible reach of his generosity, but also to the deep struggles of those whose lives he had touched, often without realizing it. Each story they had shared, the veteran battling PTSD who found stability through his donations, the single mother saved from eviction, became a mirror reflecting the complexities of human suffering and resilience. Keanu saw clearly how desperation could drive people to the edge, how poverty and pain often masked the potential for tragedy, and how timely help could redirect lives toward hope. He pondered the emotional toll on those individuals, the fear they carried, the shame they hid, the silent battles they fought. It was a reminder that philanthropy was never just about money, it was about dignity, about recognizing the humanity in every person. Keanu also wrestled with his own feelings, the fear of exposure, the vulnerability of knowing so many eyes were now on his every move. But more than fear, there was a growing sense of responsibility. The power of his quiet giving was undeniable, but with power came the need for care, for wisdom, for ongoing commitment. He found himself returning often to a central truth, addressing the root causes of hardship, mental health, financial instability, social isolation, was essential. Punishing symptoms without healing causes was futile. His philanthropy had become a form of prevention, a shield against despair and crime, a way to mend society from its foundations. This understanding gave him renewed hope. It was a philosophy he had long believed in, but now saw realized in a tangible, impactful way. Keanu's heart swelled with gratitude for the countless frontline workers, those tireless advocates and caregivers who partnered with his support to change lives every day. In his quiet moments of reflection, Keanu knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and setbacks. But he was ready to learn, to grow, and to continue serving with humility and purpose. As dawn broke over the city, Keanu awoke with a clarity he hadn't felt in weeks. The morning light streamed softly through his window, illuminating his study where a fresh journal lay open, waiting. Writing had become his refuge, a sacred space to process the storm of emotions and thoughts swirling within. He began to write with intention, pouring out reflections on fear and confusion, on the unexpected humility and hope that had blossomed in their place. His philanthropy was more than a series of donations. It was a calling, a mission steeped in empathy and responsibility. Keanu wrote about the profound responsibility that came with giving, not only to provide aid, but to do so thoughtfully, with respect for those who received it. The FBI's case studies had revealed the vital importance of timing and discretion, of understanding the intricate lives behind the statistics. His thoughts expanded to the broader societal implications. What if more philanthropists adopted this preventive approach? What if governments and communities prioritized addressing root causes over punitive measures? The vision of transforming society from within sparked a quiet excitement in him, a hope for a future where compassion and justice walked hand in hand. Though the ongoing investigation still cast a shadow, Keanu felt a deep sense of peace. The path before him was clearer now, to continue his quiet work with integrity and compassion, letting his actions be guided by the lives he touched, rather than by headlines or praise. As the day grew brighter, he closed his journal and stepped to the window, looking out at the awakening city. The challenges ahead were undeniable, but so was his resolve. Keanu Reeves was more than a man caught in a storm of scrutiny. He was a man devoted to kindness, resilience, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest acts could ripple outward to change the world. With that thought, he embraced the day with quiet courage, ready to walk the path ahead. One step, one act of compassion at a time. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly as the conversation with the FBI agents moved from explanation to collaboration. Agent Parker, ever professional yet clearly moved by what she had witnessed, posed a question that felt both cautious and hopeful. "Mr. Reeves," she began, "after seeing the impact of your giving, we wonder if you would be willing to help us understand your methods more deeply. Your approach appears to be an incredibly effective crime prevention strategy. If we could learn from it, there might be potential to replicate this model nationwide, helping many more communities." Keanu considered her words carefully. The idea of sharing his approach with a wider audience stirred a complex mix of emotions. On one hand, the prospect of amplifying the impact of his philanthropy was deeply appealing. More lives could be changed, more crises prevented, if others could follow a similar path. Yet, on the other hand, the very privacy he had fiercely protected was at stake. His giving was personal and anonymous by design, a shield not just for himself, but for the vulnerable people who benefited. Publicizing the methods risked exposing those who preferred to remain unseen, and it threatened the intimate trust that formed the foundation of his work. Agent Davis noticed his hesitation and added gently, "We understand the importance of privacy. Our intention isn't to bring unwanted attention or publicity to your donations, but to learn the principles behind your approach so we can support similar efforts discreetly and ethically." Keanu nodded slowly, appreciating their respect and sensitivity. "Anonymity is crucial," he said quietly. It empowers people who might otherwise face stigma or shame. It allows them to receive help without feeling judged or exposed. The agents listened intently as Keanu began to outline the philosophy behind his giving, a belief that compassion should be offered without conditions, quietly, and without expectation. His donations were intended as lifelines, not spotlights. As the conversation unfolded, Keanu and the agents delved deeper into the ethical complexities surrounding philanthropy and social justice. Keanu shared his conviction that giving was not merely about financial transactions, but about cultivating genuine relationships grounded in respect and trust. Philanthropy, he explained, should never be transactional or about power. It's about humility, about recognizing the dignity of every person we aim to help. The agents nodded thoughtfully, acknowledging the wisdom behind his words. Agent Parker remarked, "Many well-meaning efforts fail because they don't listen to the people they serve. They impose solutions instead of working alongside communities. Your approach seems to invert that model. It's about partnership and empathy." Keanu agreed, elaborating on the importance of empowering those in need without perpetuating dependency or shame. He described how his donations were often routed through trusted local organizations that understood the unique challenges of their communities, ensuring aid was both effective and respectful. The discussion shifted to the broader implications for public policy. They explored how government agencies could incorporate preventive strategies modeled on Keanu's philanthropy, addressing root causes of crime and poverty before they escalated into crises. Keanu spoke passionately about the need for systemic change. "We can't just treat symptoms," he said. "We have to transform the conditions that breed desperation, lack of mental health support, unemployment. Philanthropy can lead, but it must be part of a larger, coordinated effort." The agents expressed admiration not only for Keanu's vision, but also for his steadfast commitment to compassion over publicity. "Your work exemplifies how giving can be a form of social justice," Agent Davis noted. "It's about equity and opportunity, about building communities where people aren't forced into impossible choices." The tone throughout remained collaborative and respectful. Both sides recognized the immense potential of combining private generosity with public resources. They envisioned partnerships that could multiply impact, blending expertise, empathy, and accountability. Keanu felt encouraged by this shared vision. Despite the challenges ahead, the scrutiny, the complexity, he saw a path forward where his quiet kindness could inspire broader change. The conversation deepened his resolve to protect privacy while fostering innovation in giving. As the meeting neared its conclusion, Agent Parker turned to Keanu with a thoughtful expression, her tone sincere and reflective. "Mr. Reeves, before we finish, we'd like to hear more about your hopes and vision for the future, especially regarding philanthropy's role in social justice and community safety. How do you see this evolving?" Keanu took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts carefully. The weight of the recent revelations, combined with the agent's genuine interest, stirred something within him. "I believe philanthropy should be a humble, almost invisible force," he began slowly. "One that listens first, truly listens to the communities it serves. It must honor their voices, their knowledge, and their strength." He paused, looking out the window as if searching the horizon for words. Real change isn't about grand gestures or headlines. It's about consistent, thoughtful support that meets people where they are. Building trust over time, empowering, not patronizing. Keanu leaned forward slightly, the conviction in his voice growing. Philanthropy must also be part of a larger movement, working alongside governments, policymakers, and community leaders, addressing the root causes of poverty, mental illness, and social inequality, providing not just emergency aid, but long-term solutions. He thought of the countless people he'd heard about, the veterans, the struggling families, the vulnerable children, and the systemic challenges they faced. We have to move beyond treating symptoms and start transforming the systems that create these hardships. Only then can we truly build safe, just, and thriving communities." Agent Davis nodded appreciatively. "Your vision resonates deeply with what many are starting to realize, that giving without respect and partnership can sometimes do more harm than good. Your focus on dignity and empowerment is inspiring," Agent Parker added. "This approach could redefine philanthropy and public safety. If we can replicate it, support it, and scale it ethically, the impact could be profound." Keanu smiled softly, feeling a rare sense of peace amidst the ongoing challenges. "I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this with you. It's humbling to think that my quiet work might inspire a broader change." He looked at both agents, sensing their sincere commitment. "I hope we can collaborate to expand this model, helping people before they reach crisis points, and building communities where everyone has the chance to thrive." As the conversation ended, a deep mutual respect filled the room. Keanu, once burdened by fear and uncertainty, now embraced a renewed sense of purpose and partnership. The road ahead would be long and complex, but he no longer walked it alone. Together, they had laid the groundwork for a new chapter, a chapter where compassion, respect, and collaboration could transform lives on a national scale. Keanu Reeves sat quietly, humbled yet strengthened, ready to continue his journey with unwavering heart and steadfast resolve, knowing that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple out to create lasting change. After many days of reflection and quiet contemplation, Keanu Reeves reached a profound decision about the path he would continue to walk. The revelation that his anonymous philanthropy had prevented crimes and changed lives had opened his eyes to a new dimension of impact, one far beyond what he had ever imagined. But with that knowledge came a clear understanding of what truly mattered, protecting the privacy and dignity of those he helped, as well as preserving the anonymity that allowed his giving to remain pure and free of spectacle. Keanu reaffirmed his commitment to the quiet way he had chosen to give. He knew that publicizing his philanthropy, or the identities of the recipients, could risk exposing vulnerable people to judgment and stigma. The power of anonymity, he believed, was essential. It allowed those in need to accept help without shame or fear. It protected the fragile trust between donor and recipient, a trust that was the foundation of true kindness. With this renewed conviction, Keanu began to increase his support for key organizations that had proven themselves trustworthy and effective partners. He focused on expanding funding for mental health initiatives, recognizing how critical psychological well-being was in preventing the cycles of despair that often led to crime. He also directed resources toward youth programs aimed at education, mentorship, and opportunity, hoping to provide young people with alternatives before desperation took hold. Each contribution was made quietly, with no fanfare or public announcement. The ripple effect of these acts of kindness could be seen in communities once broken by hardship, families finding stability, children accessing safe spaces, veterans receiving the care they needed. These small but powerful changes were the true reward. Keanu embraced his new role as an invisible protector, a guardian working behind the scenes to shield those most vulnerable. It was a humble acceptance, but also a profound one. He understood that true impact did not require recognition or applause. It required dedication, respect, and unwavering compassion. In the weeks that followed, Keanu immersed himself deeply in his mission of quiet philanthropy. His days were a blend of thoughtful conversations, strategic planning, and listening with compassion. Though the spotlight of public attention lingered nearby, he remained steadfastly focused on the work itself, the lives being touched, the hope being restored. His calls to nonprofit leaders were frequent but discreet. He sought out organizations with proven track records and heartfelt dedication, those working in the trenches of community life. Mental health programs were at the forefront of his giving. Keanu understood better than most how invisible wounds could devastate individuals and families alike. He poured resources into counseling centers, support groups, and innovative outreach programs designed to break down barriers to care. One organization he supported specialized in crisis intervention for veterans, providing immediate mental health support in moments of crisis. Another offered art therapy and mindfulness workshops for trauma survivors. Keanu's donations weren't just financial. He also lent his voice, quietly advocating for mental health awareness among friends and colleagues. Alongside mental health, youth development programs received increasing attention and funding. Keanu believed deeply in the power of education and mentorship to break cycles of poverty and despair. Scholarships were expanded, new after-school programs launched, and mentorship networks strengthened, all designed to give young people opportunities and pathways to brighter futures. Keanu often visited these programs in person, though never seeking publicity. He preferred to observe quietly, to connect with staff and participants on a human level. He listened to stories of resilience and struggle, taking in the challenges faced by those trying to rebuild their lives. Throughout all this, Keanu maintained strict confidentiality and discretion. Privacy was paramount, not just for himself, but for the people he aimed to protect. Many recipients of aid were in vulnerable situations where exposure could cause stigma or worse. The anonymity of his giving was a shield, preserving dignity and trust. Scenes from his philanthropy unfolded like quiet moments of grace. A teenager walking confidently into a newly funded learning center, a veteran smiling after receiving vital medication, a family holding keys to a home saved from eviction. These glimpses spoke louder than any public announcement ever could. Keanu's philosophy was clear. True compassion was humble, discreet, and deeply respectful. It empowered people without spotlighting their struggles. It built bridges without imposing judgment. As twilight deepened into night, Keanu found himself alone in his garden, the soft glow of lanterns casting gentle light over the plants and flowers he so carefully tended. The air was cool and still, filled with the subtle fragrance of jasmine and earth, a peaceful contrast to the turmoil that had recently surrounded his life. Standing there, he felt a profound connection to the quiet rhythms of nature, a reminder that growth often happens unseen, slowly but surely. In this stillness, Keanu reflected on the immense responsibility he had embraced as a quiet guardian of kindness. The role was far from glamorous. It demanded patience, discretion, and an unwavering commitment to principles rather than praise. There were moments when the temptation to step into the light, to share stories of the lives touched and crises averted, felt almost irresistible. Yet every time that urge arose, he pushed it aside, reminded that true generosity thrived in anonymity. He thought about the families he had helped keep intact, the mothers who no longer feared eviction, the veterans who could afford medication, the children given new opportunities through scholarships and mentorship programs. These lives, changed quietly and without fanfare, were the real measure of his impact. Their stories would likely never reach headlines, but to Keanu, they were worth more than any public accolade. The ripple effects of his philanthropy had begun to reshape communities. Trust blossomed where suspicion once lingered. Hope was rekindled in places long shrouded by despair. The generosity he had extended created a network of support that went far beyond the money itself. It built bridges between people, encouraged resilience, and planted seeds for future growth. Seeds that would plant a nation. And Keanu recognized that the power of giving lay not only in the immediate relief it provided, but in its capacity to restore dignity. Many of those helped faced stigma and shame tied to their struggles. By keeping assistance anonymous, Keanu preserved their privacy, allowing them to accept help without fear or judgment. This respect for dignity was a cornerstone of his philosophy, a belief that kindness should empower, not expose. Looking up at the night sky, Keanu felt a deep sense of peace settle within him. The challenges of balancing impact with discretion, of protecting the vulnerable while maximizing help, were ongoing. Yet, this quiet mission had become his purpose and his strength. He was not seeking recognition. He was building a legacy of compassion, one unseen act at a time. The night whispered promises of renewal, and Keanu felt ready for whatever lay ahead. His resolve was steady, his heart humble but strong. In this quiet commitment, he found a profound fulfillment, knowing that true change often grows in the shadows before blossoming in the light. Keanu Reeves was more than a public figure. He was a guardian of hope, a steward of kindness, and a humble protector of those who needed it most. And in that role, he was exactly where he needed to be. The atmosphere in Keanu Reeves's study had shifted remarkably from the initial tension to one of profound respect and understanding. Over the course of several hours, the two FBI agents had delved deep into discussions with Keanu, sharing insights, exchanging philosophies, and unpacking the true impact of his philanthropic work. Now, as they began to prepare for their departure, the room carried a calm warmth that had not been present before, as if a genuine connection had been forged between law enforcement officers and a man devoted to quiet kindness. Agent Parker, the lead agent, cleared her throat gently and looked Keanu directly in the eyes. "Mr. Reeves, on behalf of our entire team, I want to express our deepest gratitude. Thank you for your generosity, your humility, and most importantly, for trusting us enough to share the heart of your approach. It is rare to encounter someone whose actions so genuinely embody compassion and integrity." Keanu met her gaze with a humble nod, feeling the weight of her words settle softly but deeply within him. "I appreciate your kindness and respect," he replied quietly. "This journey has been unexpected, but I'm grateful we could have such an open and honest conversation." Agent Davis, sitting beside Parker, added, "Please be assured that everything we have discussed today will remain confidential. The privacy of the people you help is paramount. We fully understand the significance of anonymity, not only for you, but for every person touched by your generosity." Relief washed over Keanu like a gentle tide. Though he had always valued his privacy, the knowledge that his quiet mission would be protected and honored lifted a burden he hadn't fully recognized he was carrying. The promise of discretion was a balm to his spirit, allowing him to breathe easier. The agents continued, expressing their admiration for the thoughtful care Keanu had taken in directing his philanthropy. "We will continue to support and respect your efforts," Agent Parker said. "Your example challenges us to rethink how law enforcement and philanthropy can collaborate to create safer, healthier communities." Keanu smiled softly, feeling the sincerity in their words. This was not merely an investigation, it was an unexpected partnership. A meeting of minds united by a shared commitment to kindness and justice. As the conversation reached its natural conclusion, Keanu rose from his chair, and together they made their way toward the front door of his home. The hallway was lined with photographs and personal mementos, a testament to a life marked not by spectacle, but by meaningful connections and moments of quiet joy. The sense of tension that had once weighed heavily upon Keanu's shoulders was now replaced by a gentle affirmation. The agents moved with a respectful grace, their presence no longer an intrusion, but a sign of mutual respect. "It has been an honor to meet you, Mr. Reeves," Agent Davis said earnestly. "Your work reminds us that sometimes the greatest power lies not in authority or force, but in quiet, persistent acts of kindness." Keanu nodded thoughtfully, the truth of her words resonating deeply within him. "Thank you. I intend to continue this path quietly. The work itself is what matters, not the recognition." Standing at the threshold, Agent Parker extended her hand with genuine warmth. "We look forward to witnessing your efforts continue to grow and inspire. Should you ever need assistance or wish to collaborate, please know our doors are open." Keanu accepted her handshake firmly, grateful for their sincerity and the support they offered. As the agent stepped outside, he closed the door gently behind them, a soft smile lingering on his lips. Turning back inside, he felt an overwhelming sense of calm and renewal. This visit had transcended its original purpose, evolving into a moment of unexpected connection and validation. It was a powerful reminder that even in the midst of challenges, kindness and integrity could prevail. Keanu moved toward the window, gazing out at the sprawling city lights twinkling against the night sky. Each light represented a story, a life filled with possibility. In that quiet moment, he reaffirmed his commitment to be a guardian of hope, a protector of those whose stories often went unheard. The moment the agent stepped outside and the door quietly closed behind them, a profound stillness settled over Keanu's home. The space, once filled with tension and uncertainty, now felt imbued with a deep sense of calm and renewed purpose. Keanu lingered for a moment by the door, breathing in the silence, feeling the weight of what had just transpired. It was more than an investigation. It was a meaningful exchange of respect, values, and hope. He slowly made his way back to his desk, where his journal awaited. Sitting down, Keanu allowed himself a rare moment to reflect deeply on everything. The stories shared by the agents, the invisible lives touched by his generosity, and the delicate balance between privacy and impact that now framed his mission. The days that followed were marked by renewed energy and clarity. Keanu dove back into his quiet work, but with a firmer conviction and a broader vision. His giving increased, not just in amount but in strategic thought. He supported new mental health initiatives that offered counseling and crisis support in ways that reached people who might otherwise fall through the cracks. He expanded funding for youth programs focused on education, mentorship, and opportunity creation, believing that empowering the next generation was the most powerful way to break cycles of hardship. His involvement went beyond money. Keanu stayed connected with the organizations he supported, listening closely to their needs and challenges. He valued their insights, recognizing that real change required partnership, not just resources. Throughout all this, Keanu remained fiercely protective of privacy. Confidentiality agreements were reinforced, and discretion was paramount. He understood that many people receiving assistance lived with shame or fear of judgment, and that protecting their anonymity was vital to their dignity and healing. Quiet scenes unfolded, like delicate threads weaving a larger story. A teenager stepping confidently into a new learning center, a veteran smiling after receiving life-saving medication, a family clutching the keys to a home they almost lost. These were the true triumphs of his philosophy. Kindness delivered with respect, humility, and love. Keanu embraced the role of invisible protector fully. It was a humble mantle, one that required patience and quiet strength. He did not seek fame or recognition. He sought only to be a steady source of hope and healing. One night, standing once again in his garden under a canopy of stars, Keanu felt the depth of his commitment settle deep within his heart. The path ahead would be complex, full of challenges and scrutiny, but so long as he remained true to his values, he believed he could continue to make a meaningful difference. In the soft rustling of leaves and the cool night air, Keanu found peace. A peace born of knowing that, even unseen, his acts of compassion were changing lives. He was no longer simply a man in the public eye. He was a guardian of hope, a silent force for good in a world too often shadowed by hardship. With quiet determination, Keanu Reeves embraced this calling, ready to continue his journey, one invisible, impactful act of kindness at a time. The days following the FBI agent's respectful departure settled into a gentle rhythm. Keanu Reeves returned quietly to the routines that had always grounded him, writing longhand in his journal, taking contemplative walks through nearby parks, and staying deeply connected with the charities he supported. The intense scrutiny that had once loomed large slowly began to fade, like a storm passing over a calm sea. Mornings were soft and peaceful again. Keanu would brew his coffee just the way he liked it, strong, black, with a hint of warmth that seemed to steady his thoughts. He cherished the solitude of those early hours, the chance to gather his mind before the day's work began. His walks became a sacred part of the day, moving slowly beneath the canopy of trees, listening to the gentle rustling of leaves. He found clarity and renewal. The quiet spaces allowed him to reflect on the journey he had been through, on the fear, the revelations, and the renewed purpose that now guided his life. Meanwhile, the heavy presence of surveillance that had shadowed his every step lifted. Security measures relaxed, and the tension that once filled his home dissolved into the background. It was as if the world was giving him back a piece of the peace he so dearly valued. Though his life remained intensely private, small signs of appreciation began to reach him in unexpected ways. Anonymous letters and messages of thanks arrived quietly, notes from people whose lives his donations had touched, though their names remained unknown. These heartfelt words, often simple and unpolished, carried a profound weight. One letter spoke of a mother who had found shelter after months of hardship, her gratitude woven through every line. Another came from a veteran who wrote of newfound stability and hope, his words a testament to the power of kindness. Keanu read these messages in solitude, feeling the ripple of connection between himself and the countless lives intersected by his generosity. Though unseen, his impact was deeply felt. As the days slowly passed into weeks, a gentle rhythm returned to Keanu's life. The relentless pressure of scrutiny that had once consumed his every thought now ebbed away, replaced by a quiet steadiness that felt like a balm to his spirit. The surveillance, once an ever-present shadow, finally ceased. Security personnel who had been stationed around his home and favorite spots discreetly withdrew, signaling a new chapter of calm and regained privacy. Despite the easing of external tensions, Keanu's internal dedication to his mission only deepened. His support for the charities closest to his heart remained unwavering, and in fact, he quietly increased his contributions. Mental health programs flourished with his aid. Counseling centers expanded their hours. Outreach teams found new resources to connect with those in crisis, and innovative therapies that targeted trauma were made accessible to more individuals than ever before. Keanu also intensified his commitment to youth-focused initiatives. He believed firmly in the transformative power of education and mentorship as tools to break the cycles of poverty and despair that could otherwise consume young lives. Scholarship funds grew, new after-school programs were launched in underserved neighborhoods, and mentorship networks flourished under the steady flow of his discreet generosity. Throughout these efforts, Keanu maintained an unwavering respect for privacy. Confidentiality agreements with every organization ensured that the identities of donors and recipients alike remained protected. He understood that many individuals seeking assistance carried heavy burdens of shame or fear of social stigma. The power of anonymity allowed them to accept help freely, without the weight of judgment, preserving their dignity in moments of vulnerability. Quiet, powerful scenes began to ripple through the communities he supported. A teenager stepped confidently into a newly opened learning center, eyes wide with possibility. A veteran smiled with relief as essential medications arrived, just in time. A family clung tightly to the keys of a home saved from foreclosure. These were the unheralded victories of Keanu's quiet philanthropy, the tangible fruits of kindness given with humility and care. Keanu's philosophy was clear and steadfast. Compassion should uplift and empower without seeking recognition. It should respect the complexity and dignity of human lives. This belief guided every decision he made, reinforcing his role as a humble, invisible guardian. One evening, as the city's lights flickered on beneath a deepening twilight, Keanu stood alone in his garden, the gentle hum of nighttime filling the air. Lanterns cast a soft glow over the plants he nurtured with the same quiet care he applied to his charitable efforts. The scent of jasmine mingled with the cool night breeze, wrapping the space in a peaceful embrace. In that tranquil moment, Keanu felt a profound sense of fulfillment and resolve. The journey from anxiety and uncertainty to quiet strength and purpose had been long and winding, but it had led him to a place of deep clarity. He knew that while his life would remain private and his philanthropy anonymous, the impact of his kindness would continue to spread quietly, touching lives and communities in ways both profound and enduring. He thought about the delicate balance he had chosen: to give without seeking applause, to protect privacy even while extending help. This balance was not always easy to maintain. It required patience, discretion, and sometimes sacrifice. But in embracing it fully, Keanu found peace. The ripple effects of his giving extended far beyond immediate relief. They fostered hope, restored trust, and laid the groundwork for lasting change in neighborhoods too often overlooked. His invisible acts of kindness became a beacon, a steady light in a world often clouded by hardship. As he turned back toward the house, Keanu carried with him a renewed sense of purpose. He was more than an actor or public figure. He was a guardian of hope and dignity, a silent architect of healing in countless lives. And as he closed the door behind him, he knew his mission was far from over. The road ahead would bring challenges and tests of faith, but so long as kindness remained his guide, he would continue walking it with unwavering heart. Keanu Reeves was a man devoted to quiet strength and gentle compassion, ready to change the world, one unseen act of kindness at a time. Keanu Reeves sat quietly in his study as the day faded into evening. The soft glow of the lamp on his desk illuminated the pages of his journal, but his thoughts were far away, turning over the profound lessons he had learned. He reflected deeply on the incredible power of compassion, not the kind that demands attention or seeks praise, but the quiet, unseen kind that changes lives and communities in ways so subtle they often go unnoticed. Compassion, Keanu thought, is like a gentle stream carving its way through rock, slow, persistent, and transformative. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or demand applause. Instead, it moves quietly, finding cracks where hope has been lost and filling them with kindness. This is the force that had guided his giving from the very beginning, the desire to help without drawing attention, to support without judgment, and to uplift without expectation. He recalled the countless stories shared with him of individuals whose lives had been changed because someone, often unseen, chose to act with empathy. The veteran who found stability through medication funded by anonymous donations. The mother spared from eviction by quiet generosity. These stories were more than anecdotes. They were proof that even the smallest acts, when given at the right time, could prevent suffering and violence. Keanu believed that true giving requires humility. It asks that we offer help without needing recognition, that we value the dignity of those receiving aid, and that we protect their privacy as fiercely as we protect the act of kindness itself. This kind of generosity, he knew, was the foundation for real and lasting change. As he thought about this, Keanu felt a quiet strength welling within, a reminder that his journey was part of something much bigger, a collective movement of countless unseen acts that together create ripples of hope. His reflections soon turned to those watching this story unfold. What power did each person hold in their hands? What small kindness could they offer quietly but meaningfully in their own lives? Keanu's heart hoped that viewers would find inspiration in the simple truth that every one of us has the ability to make a difference, no matter how hidden or humble. The truth about compassion, Keanu mused, is that it is often the quietest acts that have the most profound impact. In a world that rewards visibility and loud gestures, it can be easy to overlook the subtle power of a helping hand extended in privacy. Yet, it is in these moments, paying a bill anonymously, offering a meal without fanfare, listening without judgment, that lives are saved and futures changed. Keanu spoke gently to himself of the importance of giving without expectation. Kindness, he thought, is a gift freely offered, not a performance. It flourishes in silence, sustained by intention and respect. He imagined the ripple effect that such giving could have. How many crises were averted because someone stepped in quietly at a moment of desperation? How many acts of violence never happened because fear and need were softened by compassion? It was a powerful reminder that kindness isn't just about charity, it's about peacekeeping. When people's urgent needs are met, when their burdens are lightened even briefly, the drive toward harmful acts often diminishes. Compassion can be the difference between despair and hope. Keanu's reflections soon turned outward. How could he invite others to see themselves as part of this quiet movement? Not everyone could donate millions or fund entire programs, but everyone could contribute in their own way. Sometimes a smile, a word of encouragement, or a moment of listening was enough to shift someone's day. He hoped viewers would feel empowered, to realize that they need not wait for grand opportunities to make an impact. Every kind act, no matter how small or unseen, mattered. Together, these acts weave a fabric of community, resilience, and healing. Keanu felt the gentle call to action in his own heart. He would continue to lead by example, walking the path of humble giving, quietly building a legacy of compassion. And he invited all who listened to join him, each bringing their own light to the world in quiet kindness. As the video neared its close, Keanu's voice softened, carrying a sincere and gentle invitation that seemed to reach beyond the screen and into the hearts of every listener. "What quiet kindness will you bring to the world today?" he asked, not as a challenge, but as an open question, a call to reflection and intention. He spoke about the profound power of anonymous giving, not to hide acts of generosity, but to protect the dignity and privacy of those who receive help. In a world quick to judge and to sensationalize, anonymity created a sacred space where kindness could thrive without fear or stigma. Keanu understood that this invisible kindness could heal wounds that no public act could reach. He encouraged viewers to share their own stories, to tell of the times when unexpected kindness, whether given or received without fanfare, had shifted the course of their lives or the lives of someone they knew. These stories, he believed, formed the invisible threads that bind humanity together, creating a fabric of empathy and connection that transcended borders and differences. Keanu's words painted a picture of hope and calm. He acknowledged that the world could be chaotic, often harsh and unforgiving, but beneath the surface lay a steady, enduring strength, the quiet power of compassion. His own journey had shown him that one need not seek applause or spotlight to create meaningful change. Sometimes, the softest ripples made the deepest waves. He spoke of the countless unseen acts happening every day. Small gestures, brief moments of attention, hands extended in silent support. Each one was a thread in a vast tapestry of kindness, each one vital to the healing of communities and the restoration of hope. The screen slowly faded to black, but Keanu's gentle question lingered in the air, a whisper of possibility that invited every viewer to become part of the ongoing story of compassion and quiet strength. Keanu Reeves' quiet generosity remained mostly unseen by the world, yet deeply felt by all who needed it most. And in that sacred silence, a world of hope and healing was quietly born and endlessly renewed.